everyone, and welcome to the Let's Talk Post-Grad podcast with Tess and Whitney. This week we have a guest on. His name is Steven, and he was recently in the Peace Corps. And we talk a lot about a lot of heavy stuff, but a lot of learning and challenging things that he had to navigate during his time. His computer was practically blowing up the entire time, but he definitely has some wisdom and experiences that he shared with us that were really eye-opening for me, because in the podcast I talk about how I just genuinely could not have done what he did and been there for as long as he was. So yeah,
it was so great to talk with Steven and hear his perspective and kind of hear how he's grown from what he's been through. And I hope you all really enjoy it, because we enjoy talking to him. So let's get into it.
I'll let you get comfortable. All right. What are you drinking? What is your beverage of choice to start the podcast with us today?
Okay, so my beverage of choice is, it kind of looks like pee, but it's not pee. It's like those really cheap pre-made margarita mix that you can get like Costco or Walmart.
Oh,
like
right.
I buy one of those and then I put in tequila because it's not strong enough.
Cheers. Cheers, Steven.
Right. Cheers.
A little tequila drink.
Is tequila your drink of choice? Because it's mine too.
Yes, every day. I love tequila.
Every day.
No. I actually really don't drink. We drank too much in the Peace Corps, and we'll probably get to that later. So like once I came back, I was like, I need to like take it back.
Yeah.
Down to like high school levels.
Reel it in.
It's like,
That sounds like an oxymoron, drinking in the Peace Corps.
no, you'd be surprised. Like there's like a lot of like sadness, so like you kind of like drink yourself. And in Peace Corps, there's like 3 different places they send you: South Africa, South America, Africa, and Asia. And Asia, you go to find God. And then Africa, you go to find alcohol. So like that's like the kind of levels that you go at. I forget what South America is. They're like bananas or something like that. But
how is this like known through Peace Corps volunteers, or how did you create that combination?
There was from other Peace Corps volunteers. So like when you meet like other Peace Corps volunteers, like you find the one from like Asia, and they're always like heavy duty religious societies that like don't drink or anything like that. And then like South America is kind of like all over the place, so it doesn't really count. And then in Africa, you tend to go to like places where there's like I don't want to say a lot of alcohol, but like the Peace Corps volunteers definitely drink there.
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting. Well,
did they tell you that when you got hired? Were they like, well, depending on your location, like if you're going to Asia, you're gonna find God. If you're going
No, but they did warn us we weren't allowed to go out to drinks when we first got there, because they knew there had been like problems in the years prior with this like substance and stuff like that. So they're just like, want to cut it, and then like when you graduate from training, you're allowed to go and like drink.
Oh,
I know, it was like being in high school again. It was a little weird. I have to admit it.
I feel like I have so many questions about Peace Corps, but like let's just kind of start like with the timeline of like what led you there, so we can kind of give viewers a background of who you are, Steven, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm Steven Steven. I don't know. I'm Steven. I'm Tess's brother's roommate, and we were college roommates for 2-3 years, something like that. Long time. I've known him forever.
Feels like a lifetime.
Yeah, very long time. And then so I graduated December of 2017. And then Peace Corps has a waiting limit. So like since I graduated in December, they leave in June. So from December to June, I was a paralegal in Texas, just because there was like nothing else to do. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then from June of 2018 to January of 2020, 2019, I was in Liberia, which is Saclay, which is like, it kind of looks like a hand, Liberia on the coast, and I was like the thumb.
Thank you for that geography. I appreciate it.
Wow. So what was like the draw for Peace Corps? Because, you graduated with an engineering degree from Penn State. So what led you to choose Peace Corps over going into the industry?
So I grew up overseas before that when I was a kid. So I was in.
Wait, hold on. What is happening behind you? It sounds like there is
Oh, that must be. Sometimes my computer does that. I have.
Your computer?
Yeah, my computer is really old.
It sounds like there's a massacre happening behind you.
That's good. I'm glad you said something because I didn't know it. That's like the fan. My computer is from college and it lived all 2 years in Liberia. So now it's just kind of like this ancient old lady. It's got so many problems, but I love her. So like if you plug her in, she like makes weird noises. And if you touch her and touch the ground, she'll like electrocute you because she'll
Oh my God.
she'll pass the current through you. But she's lovely. Like you could do Word, you could like do voice chat, no problem.
No, I understand. There's like an emotional attachment sometimes to like your old laptops and devices from school.
Right.
So you did Peace Corps because you grew up overseas.
Yeah, overseas. So like the people you knew, it was the joke. You were either in the Peace Corps or a vet, a soldier, were like the only Americans you meet. And I was like, I like soldiers, but I don't necessarily want to be one. So I was like, let's do the Peace Corps. You know what? So from an early age, I always knew I wanted to be in the Peace Corps. And then it was just about getting there. So that's why I got an engineering degree. I did a lot of my internships overseas. I did an internship in South Africa, teaching and stuff like that, to prepare me to be a volunteer there, which it was great. I was kind of sad. We'll talk about that later, but it wasn't as fulfilling as I thought it was going to be.
What made you feel that way? I did AmeriCorps and I felt a similar, different, geographic spaces, but I felt a similar way to, was my work worth the impact or what? So what made you feel that way?
So we actually had a lot of guys from AmeriCorps in Peace Corps. A lot of the older volunteers were, so like the average age of a volunteer was probably 21, 22. And then we had a group of guys that were in their late 20s, and they were all pretty much AmeriCorps. And so a little bit about Liberia. It's like outside of like war-torn countries like Syria and Iraq, and countries that we don't know anything about, like North Korea. Liberia is like competitively the poorest country in the world. It's either like 1, 2, or 3 every year, and it's so hard to describe how poor it is because there's not a good example in America. Like you could like, it's so poor that people like are visibly starving. So it's like depressing that way. But then also they send a bunch of kids, 42 kids and like 3 guys that were like in their 50s that kind of knew what they were doing, to try to like solve these problems that we had no chance. Like I was a teacher, so I would go to school and do all of this stuff for my school, and then I would end up being me and the principal or me and the vice principal, trying to teach like 1,000 kids. And I'm not even joking. 1,000 kids is probably like how many students were there with 2 teachers. So
wow.
Yeah, so there was like, that was the kind of work that I was just disappointed in how that's how it kind of unfolded, because it's not like the impact was a lot. The impact was almost nothing. I helped like 10 kids because like I pulled my best students and then I taught them, which was horrible. But like I had I had 150 students who couldn't read in 12th grade. I was like, God, what do you do with that? There's no way you're going to pass SAT or their version of the SAT, which is the WASP. Sorry, that's a little rant. My bad. You need to edit that.
No, it's okay because like that's what you experienced, and it's literally a totally different world. And I'm just curious. I guess we can kind of touch on this now. I know that like some people have this like, what is the term when you go to a different country and bear with me, what is it called?
The
Savior complex.
Savior complex, but there's a white thing about it. There's like white savior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a little slow tonight. That's who I am. And I'm just curious if you kind of felt that when you were.
So there's a little bit of a savior complex, of course, naturally in every Peace Corps volunteer, regardless of race, I think. Because no one goes to Liberia without believing not to. I don't like the word save, but help. I didn't go to save anyone. I did have expectations to think that I would better people's life, and at the end, I like to think that I bettered people's life, but I was there for almost 2 years, and I still don't think it was enough. You need to be. I needed 1,000 times more money and double the time.
Right.
And 20 other people working with us, because you are very alone. You're in a community, and then there's you alone as the only foreigner, and then 2 hours away was the next Peace Corps volunteer. So it's also very isolating.
Wow.
I really enjoy hearing your experience about this because a lot of people, and I was one of those people when I was in college, considered the Peace Corps and what that would be like. And I appreciate kind of you sharing your perspective. And I hear a lot recently about white savior complex and what that means to go to the Peace Corps. But I appreciate your kind of perspective on it, that you really felt like you were there to help, which even in my daily life and in my goals for careers, I want to help. And I think a lot of other graduates, especially now with the awareness that we've tried to have as people and what we've been taught in school, you're there to try to help. And it sounds like you did the best that you could with the resources that you had. And I'm sure that you did leave something better than you found it, which I think is our goal no matter where we are. But it's so interesting. I don't think I've heard from other Peace Corps volunteers, I don't know if I made the impact that I wanted to, but I never dove into what that meant. So, other than that, what was your experience like being 22 when you graduated, right?
Yes, was I 22? No, I had just turned 23. I was 23 when I graduated.
What was it like being 23 and then going into Liberia and being the only person for 2 hours?
Super, super isolating. That was the hardest part of the whole thing, was that there was no one who was of your culture that could connect. And like I said, I grew up overseas. So I had Morocco, I had Europe, and you were still able to there are similarities between that culture and the American culture, and European culture and American culture. Liberian culture is this whole different bird, and the respect and the hierarchy. So there was that whole race thing, that do you try to tackle that, or do you not try to tackle that? And
Wow.
so the Latino thing, I gave up. It was too hard. I looked too white to try to explain that. Everyone talks about being the only black guy in an all white area. So
Right.
You get the perspective of being the only white guy in an all black area, but completely different, because you're on the top of the hierarchy instead of being belittled on the bottom.
Wow, Stephen, this is really interesting, and I'm kind of curious. So this sounds like a lot to kind of be operating in, and a lot to be in the space for 2 years and then come back to the US. Did you have any type of culture shock coming back to the US and working to navigate spaces here again? Or did you feel like being in the Peace Corps and trying to navigate situations that were a lot more intense than maybe what are happening in your backyard made it easier? Or what was that transition like?
So the transition back was kind of a shock because we got evacuated from the country. So it started off at like 100, like 100 monies, and when we left it was like 10. So at 10 the bank stopped being able to give out money. So like in the Great Depression, you have all those stories about people waiting in line to like withdraw bank notes and everything, and the problems with that. Liberia was or is going through that like right now. And so it made us even more of a target because suddenly no one has money, but we have money because we're Peace Corps. So it made us more of a problem. No one could buy anything, so they evacuated us. And they told us on a Monday that we're leaving, and we left on a Friday. So it was like you had to like and then you built all these relationships. Like I had three mamas, like beautiful Mama Marina, Mama B, and Mama Nancy, and they were all different ages, beautiful, amazing people, um, extremely smart, but in like their own different ways. So I had to slowly tell them that I was leaving on Friday, and they were all shook because I was like their family. I was adopted into their family. So I was Say Steve, which is like firstborn son, because they had other kids, but when they adopted me, I became the oldest, so I was Say, which means firstborn.
That's so interesting. What was that like telling them that you were going to leave? And what was it like to hear that COVID was happening and that now you needed to go?
Yeah, so actually, this was a little bit pre-COVID.
Oh, okay. It was just like an economic downturn.
So this was
Okay.
like separate. So it was just kind of unfortunate. We got evacuated and separated December, January, and COVID didn't come around until March. So we kind of predated it like three months. So we were the only Peace Corps country that got evacuated outside of COVID, which is not great. But that it was tough though. Like you had to tell everyone in a week, and they thought you were lying. They were like, "So when are you coming back? Are you coming back?" And they would start be like, "I'll have soup." So it's a very communal society. So there's like a big bowl of rice, and then you put on soup, and that's literally what you have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like rice. I had
Mhm.
so much rice. I dropped 50 pounds. So um,
And like that's not necessarily a positive thing.
no, it's not. I
Putting
went
it out there, okay.
I went from I guess it was 40 pounds. I went from 180 to 140,
Wow.
and it like dropped. It was in about like a 5-6 months period of time. No cars. There's no motorbikes. I mean, there are motorbikes, but you walk everywhere. So you have a
Right.
high carb, low nutrient, very active society. So it kind of like pushes you. And I
Right.
wasn't completely unhealthy, but I definitely was like looking at myself in the mirror and be like, God damn. Like freshman year of high school is like the weight I got to.
Right.
Wow.
So, and going back to Whitney's question about the culture shock when you came back
Uh,
into the States after that, what was that like? Because I know I saw you directly after that happened, and you weren't necessarily excited to be back in the States.
it was kind of like an exhaustion. So it was weird to like not stand out. You're kind of like a mini celebrity because you stand out so much. You're like everyone wants to talk to you. Everyone knows your name, and there was 25,000 people in my town, and all of them knew my name. They were like, "Yo, say Steve." Every single one of them. They were
Wow.
like, "Know who you are," because they wanted you shake all their hands. You don't walk by anyone without saying hi. So then my first like steps was New York and DC. And in New York it's like the complete opposite. I was walking down the street and I said hello to people, and my friend kept hitting me because she's like, "You don't do that here. People think you're crazy if you say hello to like just random people on the street." So
Wow.
so I had that like I was like, "That's right. I like you're not supposed to talk to people in this country." I was like, so you gotta like take a step back, be like,
Oh, that's so frustrating that that's how we are.
yeah. So that
God.
that was a little bit of a bummer. Like, this is not my personal problem, but from other Peace Corps volunteers, they had the problem where they were talking to a black person and they would speak the Liberian English dialect, which is incredibly, like, if you think about that, it's like it's like being a little racist, but it was like so in their head because for the past 2 years, no one can speak like us. So
Mhm.
then they would go around and just be like, "Oh, hello, how are you? Doing fine? Oh, you able to speak this Liberian English, like small like this?" And it would just be these little things that people struggled with initially, and then they would apologize and be like, "Sorry, that was like my bad. I just came from here." And so there was that little bit of a problem. Mm, it was cold. Trump was our president.
Yeah,
So like
all
they were,
kind of rough things.
yeah, but they love Trump in Liberia. I know I was always a little bit confused about that, but they love America, and then Trump was the president, so like they could elect anyone and they would love him. And
Wow. There's so much to digest. Like I don't even like have anything to say right now. I just need to like sit with it for a second. There's just
Yeah,
so
your postgrad experience really is quite unique from I think a lot of other people that take that are done with post graduation that graduate and then move on to something different. And would you, looking back at it, would you do anything differently?
I love Liberia, but I would have picked a different country. Um,
oh, so you would still do Peace Corps? You
I would have,
wouldn't have anything
yeah,
else?
I would have
Okay.
tried. I would have gone to Ghana because the resources are there. Like, there's nothing. I love Liberia, and I'm really happy I went there. And this is, I have to like say something though. Everything about Liberia is you have the power of a single story. So like mine is one story from Liberia, and if you talk to any of the other Peace Corps volunteers, they'll be wildly different. Like I know people who want to stay there for like 5 or 6 years. So this is just my story, my opinion
Yeah,
of it.
no, and I'm really happy you said that because I do think it's important that you are just talking from your experience and from what you did, and not just representation of all of Peace Corps.
Yes. So, but unfortunately, more schools were like mine, where we were minimally as like one, two, three other teachers that showed up consistently. And it's not the teacher's fault. It was like the government didn't have any funds, so they couldn't pay the teachers. And the teachers started working for like 3 or 6 months, and then they weren't getting paid. So their kids and their family like are not eating, so they go elsewhere to get jobs. So they're like on the field, they're like working other places because the government isn't paying them a salary. So it's not the teacher's fault at all, and it's just like a messed up. There's no solution that I could think of, and that's probably what makes me not like when I look back, why I would pick a different country is because I don't think there is a solution that we could do. No matter what, the government's not going to have enough money to pay their teachers. As a result, the teachers don't go to school. As a result, the students don't get an education. As a result, you get a bunch of 12th graders who can't read and write. So these are all not like small problems, and you can see the problems, but there's not like a way to fix that. There's no way the government could get more money like that. It's like a really poor place. So that's why I would pick Ghana. There's more. The teachers show up, not show up, but they get paid to show up, and you can like, because that's who really matters. You're not really there for the students. You're there for the teachers. You can train the teachers, and then they take what you can learn, and then when you leave, they can further the education. But if there's no teachers to train, then there's no long-term solution. You have short-term solutions. You're teaching students, but you're not like solving any problems in the long term.
Mhm.
It's just like, I don't know. It depends on who you ask if that's good or bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something I've learned about and I've heard about in terms of you show up and then when you leave, you leave with the resources that you brought. And so I agree that when you can create a long-term solution and you can look at how you can empower a community to not need you is when it's like really meaningful. So like, and it's meaningful either way. I mean, clearly there was something that you were doing there that was necessary or was helpful in some way, but I can see why a long-term solution would be what you were more attracted to for sure.
Yes.
Just it sounds like a lot to learn and adapt to. Do you feel like it was a point of growth for you in any way? Do you feel like after you graduated, like what was like one or two things that you feel like you brought out of Peace Corps, and now when you're post grad life, you think are building you up today or helping you today?
Well, Peace Corps trains you in flexibility. There's like nothing more flexible defining than Peace Corps. So like losing weight or nothing to do because the witch doctor guy came through and you're not allowed to have any of your lights on. So you have a ball and you just like toss your ball up because you're not allowed to leave the house. Um, you have to like kind of talk to people who in the past, because Liberia is a war-torn country, did bad things in the war, and you hear that from other people, and you know, you're like, do you judge them for what they did now, what they do now? Do you accept their help? So there's like a lot of things that I learned. You can't judge a book. You don't judge a book by the cover, and that's kind of like cliche like that, but then it really kind of like defines itself in Peace Corps because you know, like, would you do the same thing if you were in that situation?
I think it's so interesting to hear your perspectives. And do you think that is something you've carried with you now in terms of really not trying to judge a book by its cover? Because I think that's definitely still something that people in the States struggle with by, you know, the circumstances they're born into or what's going on in their life, and they hit a low ceiling and then they get stuck in this routine. Do you think that's something you're still carrying over with you in your post grad life, even though you are not in Liberia?
A little bit of it. The problem with the United States is that, like, even now, like in Peace Corps, post Peace Corps, I did engineering projects in Peace Corps, like EHS stuff, environmental stuff, like really big projects. And even now, so I have a little bit of experience, and I went to Penn State Engineering. I still am not able to get a job, like a full-time engineering job, like 6 months through, driving me crazy.
What was that? Were you just like driving a
I
forklift?
I was driving myself like, cause like I just do. I'm like, it's hard to define like post Liberia. Um, right now I'm not judged on Peace Corps. It doesn't matter that I was in the Peace Corps. It doesn't matter that I'm an engineer. The jobs that I'm like applying to, that I'm getting interviews for, are like Costco and like Target, and they're like, "You worked for Wegmans for like 5 years," and I'm like, "Yeah, when I was 16." And they're like, "Oh, that's experience. What do you want to hear about that?" And I'm like, "You don't want to hear about anything else? Like, I have like an engineering degree, and like I taught people like in Africa." And they're like, "No, we want to talk to you about how your cashier trained." So,
Wow.
so
What
it's,
that's so how do you feel about that? And I think that's something a lot of people can relate to. It is the pandemic that's definitely a factor. And what it yeah, how do you feel about that?
I'm super sad about it because like I was ready. I had a timeline where I was going to. I mapped this. I'm a mapper. So like I graduated from college. I knew I was always going to take that 6 months before Peace Corps, and then it was 27 months in the Peace Corps, and then once you're out, I could do 2 months for downtime, and then you get a job. And well, we got evacuated at 19, so that means I got 9 months where I haven't been able to like really do anything, which is like okay, but it's like ruining my plan. I went to school to like I love Penn State and what I did. And, I wasn't the best student, but I definitely wasn't a bad student. I got an engineering degree. I got above a 3.0. That's what it was required. In major, I was like, okay. In major,
That's all
3.0
that matters.
Empire is like what they wanted you to do, and I did that. And I can't even get interviews, let alone jobs. And I have like 600 applications. So if
Oh
like
gosh.
anyone hiring out there, be like, yo,
Right. And it like Whitney said, it's just frustrating because also the timeline of how it worked out with you being evacuated like that and then it being corona season is just insane to me that it happened back to back like that.
yeah,
And so you've been applying to jobs, and so where are you right now? Are you in Texas, or what's the
yeah.
life like?
So I'm in Houston, and I've been to say that I've been bad Corona person because I have. There's no doubt. Like I went to go. I was in December and January pre-COVID. I went to see Dan in Pennsylvania, and I went to New York to see my friend. I went to LA to see another friend, and then I went to Australia for a month and a half to like help other Peace Corps volunteers. And then that's when I left for COVID. Like everything was happening with COVID, and it was interesting to hear from a different perspective because in Australia you're with all of the Europeans, and that's where like was happening first.
Mhm.
So there was a bunch of Italians just like flipping shit, being like, "Oh my god, my country is like dying." And be like, "I know." Be like, "Is this going to be like a whole thing?" And then USA gets it, and they start shutting down the airport, so I have to like buy my ticket to get out of Australia. And then
Wow.
since then I've been bad. I went to Idaho, I went to Arizona, I went to California, I went to like
Ian,
oh
what are you doing? Why are you going to all these
no,
places?
I'm bad. I'm bad. That's why I say I'm a bad Corona person. I wear my mask, and I like super wear it. I have like the double mask where you wear the one underneath and then wear a fatty underneath. It's like I have no.
Wait, but what is in Idaho that you need to get there? Like, I'm just confused. Are you visiting people and people that you
Yeah.
haven't seen since Peace Corps?
Yes. So like in Idaho, I was visiting my partner. Her name's Jaya. So she was in Idaho, and I visited her again in Arizona, and then my best friend I saw in Lake Tahoe.
Okay.
So there's no, and then there's no doubt I should know better. See a little bit. I'm a little stir crazy. So like I wasn't able to get a job in Corona and be like I got to do something, or I'm just going to like
Yeah.
flip shit over here.
No,
So
and that's true. And Whitney and I have talked about this with previous guests. It's hard during Corona to kind of know how to navigate that if you don't have a job. And a lot of the people that I talk to that I'm close with, they don't have jobs. And it's one of those things of what do you do with your spare time, especially since some of these people aren't hearing back from people that they're applying to, and it's just so like that's your only option is to visit with other people to keep yourself busy because that's the only way you can have some sort of fulfillment during this time, but it's like that's also not safe. So I'm happy you're owning up to being a bad Corona person. That's going to be the name of this episode.
yes, and bad computer person, bad Corona and bad computer.
Stephen, you're great. What is it like dating? I didn't know you had a partner, and so what is it like dating in the pandemic and dating like in this life that you're in right now?
Well, she is another Peace Corps volunteer. I met her in Liberia. Um, so there was 45 of us, and 2 of us were teachers. She's one of the teachers. So she was like this cute little nerd math. Like that's what she wanted to be. She's from Idaho. I didn't even know people were from Idaho. Let alone like anything else. Be like, so she's like the first person from Idaho that I've ever met, and we've always been long distance. Like we dated almost from the beginning. So I met her like day one, and then like day like 50, we started secretly dating because there's like a lot of gossip in Peace Corps. It's like a bunch of little old ladies and their gossip machines. So you have to be like shush and like okay. Um, and it was good. She was 8 hours away from me when we were in the Peace Corps. So like if I was in New York, she was in like Pittsburgh. But if New York to Pittsburgh didn't have any roads, so you kind of had to like motorbike on like really nasty dirt roads to get there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it was like all cool and everything. It was kind of cute. She hated motorbikes, so like putting her on, and she's really small. She's like 5'1", 100
Wait,
and
Steven, can I ask you something? So from the time that I've known you, because I've known you since I was like what, 16, something like that. And I'm just curious. I've seen you date a lot of people, and that's not to be derogatory or anything towards you. And I'm just wondering what makes this woman different than the other woman you have dated, because you've been with her for a little bit now, and I'm just curious what, besides meeting her in the Peace Corps.
I mean, that's all. That's kind of like a catch-22 because they're like all my partners are very similar and then very different. Like I'm attracted to intelligent people, so they're all highly intelligent, including Jaya. That's her name. Um, she also, but what I like about her is that she's like that one American that's like from that part of the country that they have like a different mindset. She's like a country girl who grew up in an area where there was like 50 people and she knew everyone by their name. And she went to Idaho. She was a sorority girl. All just a whole different like mindset that I never understood. Like someone like that, how do you go from never leaving to Idaho to going to Liberia? What most people like go to Europe at least once or like have a passport. Like none of these things. And I'm like,
Well, like her spontaneity really is what is attractive to you, and how she just goes
yes.
for it.
It's more because I don't understand her. She surprises me. Like I'm really
But
like
she's
I'm,
doing it right. She's doing it all right. She knows
yeah.
what she's up to.
I'm not saying that other girlfriends in my past have surprised me, but Jaya continuously forever every day be like, I just don't understand your choice. Like it makes sense, and then she explains to me, and I'm like I'm totally wrong, but like I don't understand how you got there.
Is that a good thing? Do you
Yes,
think it's
it's a
positive?
fabulous thing.
Okay. That's good that she challenges you in a healthy way.
Yes, and but that's all people. Like a lot of my friends are very similar like that. Dan was a lot like that. Her brother, he like was constant, constant, constant,
My
constant.
brother, Jaya's brother.
Tessa's brother. Tessa's brother. He was constant, 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 and then he would just like surprise you and be like, "What?"
Well, Stephen, let me just gas you up for a little bit for the audience. I feel like you're one of those people that you really like to be surrounded by people who are opposite of you. Like I feel like I surround myself with people who are kind of similar to me, and I like have a connection with in a way that we're on the same page. But when I take a look at my brother and who he is for me, and when I take a look at you, no, nothing. there's similarities in terms of what you want to do in like career goals, but I do think that's interesting about you, that you really are attracted to relationships that challenge you and make you think and be like, I don't understand that, but I love you anyway, and I think that's really admirable.
Because I think opposites attract, and if you're too similar, then in the end of the day, it's not going to work. And I'm not going to say that it's for everyone, but at least for me.
I think that's a great way to look at it. I love somebody that's opposite from me. And I love to be surprised by somebody's gumption and like ability to pivot and like just change what they want to do. That's so fun. I'm so happy for you. Just to wrap up, you are 3 years out from graduation. What advice do you have for people that have, like Tess and I, who have just recently graduated in 2020 or who are about to graduate?
Okay, so my advice would be is like the first 3 years, So until you're like 26 or 27, it all doesn't truly matter. Like if you want to go out and do like a real adventure, you want to try something, then I would definitely go now. Because all of the people you talk to, and this is where Peace Corps kind of like gives you the benefit. You either have people that just graduated or are like 60 or 55 or 50, because that's you don't really have anyone in the middle of their career that goes and does Peace Corps. And everyone who's older has told me that they wish I had done it when I was your age because they had the energy, and if they wanted to take more time, they could do more time. And if you want to like Corona is kind of like messing it up a little bit right now, but once Corona is done, then you'll be healthy enough and like fit enough that you can go off and do the more, I don't want to say crazy, but like foolish, I guess, things in that you've been holding back. If that's Peace Corps, if that's like maybe teaching, there's like TEFL programs and stuff like that. There's always something to do. And if you have a college degree, then like it doesn't matter. They'll take you. An American with a college degree, there are 1,000 places that would take you as a teacher.
That's so interesting that it was mostly young people in their 20s or people that were in their late 50s and 60s. That's so interesting. And I can see like how, as you settle down or have kids or kind of cement your life as you go on, it's harder to leave those things. It's harder to pivot. It's harder to change and do the crazy or like cool-ish things that you're talking about. So as somebody that like really loves adventure and loves the travel and like the challenge, I think that's really good advice. And I don't know, I'll probably take it. And I appreciate you sharing it.
Oh no, it was a pleasure. You're pretty. AmeriCorps is like the first step. You probably already figured that out.
Yeah, it was definitely a good little baby step after high school and to kind of get myself into different places and see different things. And I'm happy I did it at the end of the day. And I think right now, Corona's really getting in the way, but I'm trying to figure out what type of life I want where I can still travel and do these crazy slash cool-ish things, but still build a life that I'm proud of and I'm happy with. And I think that's something a lot of post-grads struggle with. So I appreciate your advice and your insight because you have a really cool story, and I have never spoken with anybody that lived in Liberia or chose Peace Corps and really got deep into what that meant for them. So yeah, I love your insight, Stephen. It's so cool.
Yeah, and I do think it's interesting to watch you talk about it, and you can just tell that you have learned so much because you're being so careful about the words you're using and how you're talking about it. And it's really good, and it's important because I feel like this experience really was eye-opening for you from how you're explaining it to us, and it really made you a better person. And I feel like you really have a different outlook on your life and going into whatever industry you end up in. It's one of those things that you'll carry this experience with you. And yeah, thank you for sharing with us because I also have never spoken to anyone who experienced anything like that. And I don't know if I could honestly handle that if I'm being serious with myself. It's really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, and that's another thing. Like Peace Corps is definitely not for everyone. Like there were plenty of really strong people who didn't finish their tenure, and like I said, it was harder for people. Like it took more like strength and more power to leave Liberia than it did to stay there. So like I have a lot of admiration for those who like chose, and it's like definitely not for everyone. And I have to say, like, I struggled a little bit. There was at least 3 or 4 times where I was like, I should go home. Like, my mental state is just not in the place. Like, you should go home. At the end of the day, I'm glad I didn't, but there's
Right.
no problem admitting weakness, I guess.
Yeah, and like Winnie and I talk about this too in the podcast. Whatever you do in your post grad life, it's important to do those mental checks with yourself and check in to just make sure that what you are doing is fulfilling you and making you feel like you made the right choice. And Allie talked about that. Everyone really has kind of emphasized that, and especially when you're in Liberia doing this, I think that's bound to kick in once in a while since you're dealing with all these different societal differences and cultures. It's wow. It's crazy. So normally we finish the podcast with 2 words to describe your post-grad experience. Do you have 2 words, Stephen, or
Beautifully challenging.
challenging?
Beautifully challenging.
Okay, interesting. Why is that?
Because I hated it, but no, I didn't hate it. I would prefer never to do it again. But I'm super glad that I did it. Like, college opens you up, but I feel like this time afterwards of independence even more has made it more of like who I am. Yeah.
I love that word. I think that's so good. And there's so many things that I have done and will do in my life that are so challenging. And I think that you said it perfectly. I would never want to do again, but I am so thankful that I have done them or that these circumstances have happened to me because I'm proud of who it has made me become. And I really resonate with those words. I think that's a great choice. And you said that perfectly. And I imagine that post grad life will continue to have that for you and have it for a lot of other people that just these challenges are what make us better. And it sounds like you went through a lot early on.
Anything else you guys need? I could talk all day. I'm like Peace Corps, like race relations, economic powerhouses, how Trump affected it, like all day, like questions.
No, I mean, you did a really good job at kind of summarizing that for us and putting it into words that are easy to digest. So thank you for doing that. I feel like I do have questions for you, but I don't want this podcast to be like 3 hours long.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I have so many questions for you, but I think we can wrap it up. But let's like maybe if you're in Pennsylvania, we should just get a drink with everyone. And I want to hear what you have to say. I think Peace Corps is so cool, and I think that your experience is so neat. I'm not trying to fangirl over here or anything, but I think you have a lot of insight, and I'm curious.
He's like,
Yeah,
it's fun.
I was just doing the thing because I was like looking at myself in this little mirror thing. Sorry, I got it. That's something. I guess there are little things that you picked up. There's no mirrors in Liberia at all, and the ones that are like really bad. So then you have like something that I haven't been able to shake is that every time you see yourself, you're like, okay, this is what I look like. Because it's like it's weird to go like 9, 8, 10 months without seeing yourself, and then you're like, oh my god, that's me. Like,
Yeah.
whoa.
I
Yeah.
remember that when I was in Peru for a good minute, and a lot of the places that I was at didn't have mirrors, and I went like a week without seeing myself. Not 8 months, but a week, and I was like, huh, that was kind of nice.
That's so interesting because there isn't that like a thing that everyone has dysmorphia and we like have this vision of ourselves and what we look like. I can't even imagine experiencing that. How does that even feel not knowing what you look like? Maybe I'm just a narcissist.
No,
It's very
I'm definitely. Liberia has made me a narcissist. I'll be like every time, like I said, I was just doing my little beard thing. I was like, "Hey, that's me right there."
Oh my gosh. All right, Stephen. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was great to talk with you.
Yes, thank you for sharing your experiences and being Stephen. We appreciate it so much and we'll connect with you soon to talk more about Peace Corps and more about Stephen Castro.
Yes, and everyone should watch your channel.
Thank you. We
Thank
try
you.
to.
Shout
We'll
out.
put that at the beginning. We'll like make that an advertisement for our channel. Just clip out you saying that, and I'll put it on Insta.
Okay.
All right, Stephen, thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye, guys.